Both of my great-grandfathers have been a part of that study. My roots in environmental health come from my great-grandfathers. They were sharecroppers, and then later they were able to own land for their family for generations to come. My ancestors' connection to the land has given me a strong care for our environment and how that environment influences human health. I am a fierce advocate for equitable treatment for all. The ways in which COVID-19 ravaged Black communities showed that we have underlying vulnerabilities when something like a pandemic hits. The path from tragedy to triumph travels along the path of learning.
Industry was hurting, but I done bandaged the rope. Now I got too sick with it. Now we done found us.
You know, I mean, here comes Monmouth, the defending champs. Now they come in at North Carolina A&T for homecoming.
Advice to Monmouth for homecoming at A&T.
You're giving advice to Monmouth?
Yes. Very much needed advice for Monmouth for homecoming at A&T. Leave the band at home. But at homecoming, you can just get the whole 20 minutes to A&T.
Hey, don't sleep. Monmouth has been practicing neck all summer.
When we see Dr. Lee get out there on the field, we know something.
You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
The inaugural Boeing Red Tails Classic is personal to me. It's more than a matchup between Tuskegee University and Fort Valley State University. My beloved father, Colonel Lawrence E. Roberts, was a proud member of the Tuskegee Airmen. 922 brave pilots, also known as the Red Tails, fought in World War II. The Boeing Red Tails Classic is more than a celebration of HBCUs. It's a reminder of the Tuskegee Airmen's valor and sacrifice, the first class of Black fighter pilots who trained at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama during the height of Jim Crow, fighting for America, while in many ways America fought right back against them. This inaugural Boeing Red Tails Classic, this football game, is for them. And it's quite special that this game, which will be played at the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama, opens the 2021 college football season on Sunday, September 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPNU. When you watch this game, please remember its larger meaning, that it's for a group who advocated for themselves while still facing prejudice and discrimination in the segregated Army. The Tuskegee Airmen story hardly gets told enough. I, proud daughter of a Tuskegee Airman, join others who champion their legacy and how they influence generations of Black cultural and political leaders.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. You know we do our Sunday edition. The boys are on assignment. You know, literally, you just heard the pregame show with Charles Bishop in Miami. We'll get to talk a little bit about that Jackson State FAMU thing going on down there that everybody excited about. But we got some matchups that took place on Saturday that we got to dig behind the numbers. We got Alan Williams, 1876 Sports and Culture, bringing us some frameworks, and he'll go inside the Labor Day Classic. Then you know we got the guru, BJ Jones. You see him lighting it up as Brandon down there. He done went to his core name, so you know he gonna come hard and heavy as the football analyst, guru extraordinaire. Mike Washington is literally getting ready to get on the plane with his son as they are doing their recruiting visits. So he's making the rounds, making it happen. And then we're going to have A.D. Drew. He's literally in Montgomery. So he was on the scene. So we talking to folks that were in the mix, in the stadiums, getting it done in so many different ways. So you know what we do. We bring it as always. Welcome to episode 174 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports, from institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics, to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We are filming from our home studio, sending a signal live as we always do, right here in Texas. Beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Well, you know, I got a little purple and gold on today. It's one of those things. We're going to have a new segment where when you talk about those classics, you know, you get a trophy. So when you get a championship trophy, some people get a bottle. And then other folks like to do the fine cigar. So we got a little bit of both. So we'll have a segment where we get to get in and have a little fun. You know, I've started already, as you can see. Well, I'm just kidding. This is just orange juice, not the mimosa yet. I'll wait until afterwards to make sure I can get into it. But I thought you all might enjoy that. But we'll get a chance to get into some of these. Let me ask each of you all, so I won't be rude. Starting with you, BJ Jones. How you doing?
Oh, man. Rough morning, man. Rough morning. I'm happy that football's back. You know, got a chance to watch a couple of games yesterday. Miles, Alabama State, Bowie State, Delaware State, and then on location for Southern and Troy. Glad football is back. Saw some interesting things last night, particularly when you start talking about the South Carolina State, Alabama A&M matchup, and then an eye-opener in Montgomery, Alabama with Alabama State and Miles College, a game that was a little bit closer than what people anticipated. So, I mean, a Saturday full of football, and then you got that Sunday after, but get myself pumped up because we got two ball games today. We got the big one down in Miami, Jackson State and Florida A&M. And then, we have up in Canton, Ohio, the home of Pro Football Hall of Fame, Grambling State University and Tennessee State, man. I'm getting myself pumped up for it. Doesn't look like it now, but trust me, I'll be ready to go once we get started. Then we got a nightcap with the Red Tails Classic with Tuskegee and Fort Valley State. So you're right. There's some significant games going on today, and we're going to get them all in.
with that, as AD's jumping in here, I know he was going to make sure he shared that, but I was going to make sure that we take care of BJ Jones. He just getting excited, as he said. It was a long day yesterday, man. He was all over the place, checking out all the games like a football analyst is supposed to do, so he's going to bring it hard and heavy. AD Drew was literally making it happen as he did the pregame show in the morning. Then he did the game time show. So he's all over the place too. But AD, how you doing this morning, living in the hotel as you are?
Man, after about 2-3 days of these things, I remember why I got out of coaching. That's all. But no, seriously, I love this. Great atmosphere yesterday. Yes, yesterday was a long day, but it was fun. It was rewarding. Game time show, Carlos Brown show, live on location in Montgomery, Alabama, starting off today. Pre-game show on here with you, Dr. Cavil. We've got a game time show later on today. I'll be on the Tuskegee radio broadcast today. And then BJ is going to be doing his show later on. We'll all be a part of that. So this is just a great time to be a HBCU college football fan. And bro, think what we was last year on this date.
Oh, wow. Great point.
Figuring out what we gonna do. I want, and please though, for all of us married men, because I'm new to the married profession, but I wonder what the divorce rate was during this time when these wives were used to their husbands being home on Saturdays during football season, or sometimes vice versa. Sometimes the wives going to the game and the husband staying at home. Now we got to spend time together. We used to go in our separate ways on Saturday.
Yep.
So, I'm just curious about that. You know, we do the family thing on homecoming, but the other 3 home games, we going our separate way.
Great point when you make that, and we're going to call you the hardest working man in the business officially now, in terms of the streaming broadcast platform, doing it all in so many ways for the BCSN network, and we certainly appreciate what you do. Let me bring in one of my best sidekicks. We've been down since 4 Flat Tires when they allowed us into Prairie View A&M University, and now we have our takeover plan, and it is falling into stride. I have none other than Alan Williams out of Detroit, now in Dallas. You know, he traded one D in for the other D. Getting it done, 1876 Sports and Culture Podcast. His sons are both at Prairie View doing tremendous things, but he brings it hot and heavy as he's one of the leading individuals involved in 1876 Sports and Culture Podcast. He's with us. Alan, how you doing this morning?
Man, I'm doing great. What a day yesterday, man. It was just good to be back. Football in full swing. You know, the one thing that I wish we had yesterday is, man, I wanted to see that Alabama A&M and South Carolina State game, bro. I can't believe that one was not televised. That looked, as you follow the tail of the game, man, that looked like the game of the day.
Oh, it certainly was. And all of us will get a chance to break that down. Before I do that, I'm going to give a score. We'll take some breaks and we might come in and start breaking down those matchups. The thing is, I got to make sure I apologize, Alan. I owe you apology. They gave me the cheat code hanging with BCSN in the group. They streamed the Alabama A&M game on the A&M network and it was on YouTube. So I put my eyes on that game. And as you were following the ticker, you are absolutely right. It went down to the wire. Classic. Started off turnovers. Then it just went back and forth, back and forth. You're like, whoever has the ball last might just win this game. And it looked like it. Great defensive stand. After they couldn't do it the first time on a 4th and 15, South Carolina State got it done. The second 4th and forever, they couldn't get it done, and it was an interception that sealed the game. So you're absolutely right. Fantastic matchup. But as I said, let me get into some of these scores to let the people know that we're going to show love to everybody, but we're going to focus on a couple of games. But before we do that, Onnidan, www.onnidan.com, has the schedule galore. You've probably seen that hot article on HBCU Game Day, the granddaddy of them all, as we talk about getting it some all done, and Eric Moore, and prayers go out to Eric Moore if he's dealing with it a little bit, but he's still finding a way to bring it. Let me jump in and give you some of these scores. We'll run down them real quick, take a break, and we'll come back hot and heavy. Lincoln, Missouri lost to Washburn 76-12. You had Albany State, as you've heard by now, with the big shutout 24-0 in Mississippi College. You had Wingate defeating Shaw 30-7. Mississippi Valley State getting shut out by Murray State 35-0. You have Texas College getting shut out as well to West Texas A&M 73-0. Division II versus NAIA matchup out of Texas. Shawan of CIAA getting it done against Mars Hill, winning 30-24. That was an overtime game. You have St. Augustine losing 58-14 to Tusculum. You had Virginia State leading part of that game, but at the end they fell short to Shippingburg 25-17. A&T, I got to watch this game. A&T just could not put it together. Big plays, turnovers, fascinating when you look at that matchup, but they were right there in that game, and they got it down to a one-score game late and got two big defensive turnovers for short field and couldn't do anything with it, including two missed field goals. One was blocked, the other one was missed. Just frustrating to watch that in terms of them looking like they were going to take a beat down, but fighting back. Big plays, but couldn't really consistently walk down the field. So it's going to be interesting to see what that means from A&T. As BJ Jones says early in the year, don't let one game make you panic. It is, as Mike says, and I like to say, it's one data point. So we need a couple of these games to really figure out, is it one team or is it the other team? So right now, we don't know. In this case, when we're talking about this, North Carolina A&T, is it troubles they had, or was it something that Furman was able to do? Richmond defeats Howard 38-14. Langston, NIA program, we keep telling you that this program is solid. They are good. They the real deal in terms of what they do at their level. They get the win over Oklahoma Panhandle State 10-7. Delaware State 32 over Bowie State 24. Some people thought this may be an upset. Delaware State jumped out really big, 18-0. Bowie State seemed to get it done. Seemed to get it together in the second half and fought back to make it a one-score game and make it more respectable, 32-24. Watch much of that game. And then you have Fayetteville State. They're making a statement early, 47-6. A little disappointed in this game. Townsend shuts out Morgan State 31-0. Thought it would be much more competitive than that. BJ Jones talked a little bit about this, and we'll get into this one. Alabama State in overtime defeats Miles 14-13. Defensive game there. Alabama A&M over South Carolina State in a classic 42-41 in every way of the game. Arkansas Pine Bluff gets it done solidly over Lane 34-16. Southern loses to Troy. Bigger score than most people indicated, 55-3. Morehouse with the stunner over West Alabama. Go ahead, Maroon Tigers, 49-41. You had that street rivalry. Man, these schools are split by a street, literally. Benedict pounds Allen as they just bring back the program 45-12. Bluefield State, another team that just bringing back a program. They showed well as they lost to Lawrence Tech 21-14. You have Hampton and Virginia State, Virginia Union, another one to keep your eyes on. Virginia Union fought back in a lot of ways, but could not get over the hump as they lose to Hampton 42-28. You have Lock Haven defeating Lincoln, Pennsylvania, shutting them out 20-0. You also have Clark Atlanta losing to Livingston. You know, that's the team that I say, man, that's the market I want in there, but they lose 13-10, if you would, to Livingstone. You have Virginia State getting beat up pretty bad by Lenore Ryan, 48-7. Texas Southern loses to Prairie View A&M as Prairie View goes on the road, gets it done. Beats up on Texas Southern physically, manhandled in a lot of ways, 40-17. We'll get into that a little bit. Toledo beats up on Norfolk State, 49-10. Valdosta State, another one that we said that we thought could be a type of upset, or certainly thought would be a good game. They beat up on Savannah State 53-7. UTEP, Bethune-Cookman represented for the SWAC was right in that game in every way that you can think of. They lose 38-28, but it was even closer than the score. Then we'll get into those matchups. With that said, we'll get back into it and feature a couple of games. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We'll be right back after this quick break. Stick with us as we start to break down these games, give you some insight, and then we'll take a little deep segment where we'll go into the 3 games of today. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We'll be right back after this break.
For 200 years, Montgomery, Alabama has been making history by people who had the courage to stand up for change. Today, this riverfront city has been reborn, embracing the past and looking forward to the future. From the National Memorial for Peace and Justice to the stage of the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, this is where history was and is made. We are proud to call Montgomery home, and together, we can be the change.
Let's get back to strolling instead of scrolling. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your family.
True Black Essentials is a retail opportunity to bring Black businesses under one roof where every product on every shelf in every aisle will be Black owned and Black produced by people all over the world. Statistics show that the $1.3 trillion of spending power that we have as Black people can easily be turned into each Black person having $2 billion if we were to shop Black for 2 years. So True Black Essentials will launch an e-commerce store on November 1st, 2020, but we will open up brick and mortar stores in Atlanta, New Orleans, Charlotte, Houston, and Jacksonville, with the very first store opening in Atlanta, June 19, 2021.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network.
They can follow their dreams.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As you know, they're out on assignment, getting it done. So I have the best team bringing back in the backup. You know, when I come off the bench, baby, we do 40 minutes of hell. It gets into it in so many different ways. So we're going to jump into it. Little Labor Day Classic. I have none other than BJ Jones on here. I have Alan Williams and AD Drew. We have G. Boone Holly, as he's in work getting it for us. So we're going to let him talk a little bit about the sidelines as he was putting it in, doing the pitches yesterday. We're going to give him a chance to kind of give in and give us a little sideline report before we get into it hot and heavy. So, Holly, how's it going? Come on in.
You're on mute, Holly.
There we go. I forgot.
Raymond, now we got.
I was sitting there on my phone trying to do that in there.
Yeah, yes, we understand. Well, you know, you were taking some great pictures down there on the sideline. Give us some insight. Was what we thought we were seeing either at the game in the stands or on television? Was it as hard hitting as we thought it was?
Oh yeah, it was some hitting going on down there, and I can tell you one thing: it was hot. Because you know how that stadium is. That stadium was hot. They put me down for a few minutes in the second quarter. I had to go sit on the side, catch my breath there. But it was a good game starting off, and then Prairie started to take off as they did in the second half.
No doubt about it. Well, I have your cigar. I have your bottle of champagne, so you get to bring the trophy back to Prairie View. So I'm going to go to Alan next and let him give his thoughts in terms of that matchup. What did you see breaking down that game?
Man, I gotta be honest, and I send a little text in the group text After the second series, I was like, man, I don't know. This Juwan pass might not be it with my boy Conley. And then he started to pick up steam, man. They were like, just be patient, be patient. But, you know, you start off with a couple of fumbles, man. And then, you know, I was a little shaken at first, but he found his stride and really put in a primetime performance, man. I mean, you look at this guy, he was 25 of 37 with a passing percentage of 67%, had 354 yards and 3 touchdowns. Man, you can't really ask for a whole lot more. And he was running the ball too. He rushed for seven attempts and had 29 yards rushing the ball. So he might be the truth. I'm looking forward to what he's going to bring this year. And the one thing going in this game that I was really worried about was that defense, because, you know, we lost a couple of guys in that transfer portal, but the defense really impressed me. I mean, did Texas Southern even have more than 2 first downs in the first half? It was crazy, bro. They were getting at it. So when you could hear some of those hits from the broadcast, hey, you got to love it. And let me say this, Doc, and this might be a hot take. I really appreciate all the games being streamed on the ESPN a network of channels. But ESPN, I need you to understand something. When you're doing HBCU broadcasts, you're going to have to do a TV timeout before you let the bands get on the field or something. You cannot go to commercial in the middle of the band playing. Bro, I was here losing my mind trying to see.
Drop the mic. Hot take.
Bro.
Give me my band.
I got another one to cut up, Dr. Cavil.
They don't never show the band.
I'm like, this is part of the culture. We need to get on these producers and say, look, you do not cut away from the band at halftime. Just know. So please, today with FAMU and Jackson State, somebody need to get the word out. If y'all cut away from the broadcast at halftime, it's gonna
be a problem.
It's gonna be a problem. Message.
Great point. Appreciate that insight, Alan. I'm gonna go to BJ Jones. And one of the things that folks that may not have a chance to watch that game is they might have just picked up the scores. When he talks about pass early in that game, he fumbles the ball, and Texas Southern recovers it on the 5-yard line. BJ, you'll really appreciate this. I haven't seen Prairie View's defense stop a 1st and goal since Heist Northern was the defensive coordinator with that Purple Haze defense that was leading the nation and was shut down teams. So when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, this is a good indicator." What are your thoughts in terms of what you saw in this matchup?
Hey, Prairie View did what they needed to do. Impressed with Juwan pass transfer from Louisville. 354 yards through the air, through 3 touchdowns. Did have the 1 interception and a few fumbles. He really came into his own yesterday. Also, Lindemian Brooks, the running back, he had a rough time. 15 carries, 54 yards. But that was his first game with PV. So I think with Prairie View, you saw what you needed to see. You got a convincing win over a rival that has been down. Defensively, you look a lot better. That has been a question mark about Prairie View. But I think you got to be happy when you see how this offense flowed during the spring. They were not this effective. Prairie View might be on to something. So I think that, if you're a Prairie View fan, that you're happy. And listen to these defensive stats. Prairie View only gave up 274 total yards to Texas Southern, 181 through the air. Texas Southern completed less than 50% of their passes, and they limited Texas Southern to 93 yards on 32 rushes, which is 2.9 yards per carry. That's getting the job done defensively for Prairie View. So what a way to start off the season for the Panthers down there in Texas.
Great point, BJ Jones, when you break that down. Let me go to AD Drew. Juwan Howard had 4 receptions, 136 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So he will be one that you might want to keep your eyes on. And when you talk about Brooks just having the 54 yards, 15 carries, great point. But as a total rushing attack, they were able to do 100+ yards. So it'll be interesting to see whether they'll be able to get somebody to be individually get it done. They have some smaller than statue. It looks like they're going back to see if they can get some of those running backs that can squeeze in them holes. But totally, if they do it by the team concept, they seem to be able to get some yards. But we'll see in that matchup. AD Drew, what were your thoughts on this game?
My way too early prediction in the SWAC season. Juwan Pass is the number 2 quarterback in the conference. Now, you know, everybody has always said Prairie View was a quarterback away from contending. So maybe now they have their quarterback, Prairie View can contend. You know, I was one of those who said, watch out for Prairie View finishing in the top half of the West and having a possibility to be in the race at the end of October. Although it's only one data point, like you say, Doc, this may be something it's something that you need to look at and see if it happens again. Maybe we need to do an analysis on it and see if we can come up with an equation, to use economic terms on it.
No doubt. As G Boom Ali is getting it done, we'll give him a break there and see if we can bring him back to talk about maybe a couple of his best pitchers. But with that being said, I did want to get into that game. Ali, you back into it? No, he's working on it. So with that being said, let me get into that Alabama State Miles game. I know AD Drew, BJ Jones wanted to really get in that to a little bit. Fisticuffs. I thought it was fascinating in a lot of ways in terms of what's going on. I'm going to go to you, BJ Jones. What were your thoughts in terms of that matchup? It was fascinating. As I tuned in a little bit late into it, and I saw Alabama State was holding on for a 7-0 nothing lead. Thought it was a defensive type of game, and I saw a big play by Miles, and they were able to get in the end zone late, send it to overtime, and they scored the first touchdown. Missed that block punt. Extra point, and you were like, ooh, might mean something. And obviously, it did, as Alabama State scores. As the quarterback play was interesting to me. He seemed to be missing wide receivers that were wide open all game long. So break that down and give me your thoughts in terms of Alabama State and Miles.
Clinton Smith is the new offensive coordinator at Miles. Clinton Smith was the head coach for Ron Nettles in high school. This is his first year at Miles, offensive coordinator. I think he's one of the bright minds in our game.
Nice.
Ron Nettles actually went 19 of 29 for 186 yards. Did a lot of dinking and dunking, missed the wide open passes. Bama State, ran for 183 yards as a team, averaging 4 yards per carry. But the thing that bit them is that they couldn't punch in. Red zone offense was not good. Miles really couldn't do anything through the air. They just decided, hey, we're going to make this thing ugly and just, kind of run this thing out. As a team, they ran the ball 44 times for 204 yards for 3.9 yards per carry. This was an ugly first game, type of season. Miles hadn't played in 2 years. Alabama State played in the spring. But Alabama State seems to have regressed, especially offensively. We know what Alabama State can do defensively.
Yes.
And they played an impressive ball game. Christian Clark and that group, their offense is anemic, to say, to put it delicately. And someone asked me, is Miles that good or is Alabama State that bad? And I don't think that we really know, but I will say that Alabama State has regressed. Miles offensively did what they needed to do. They made the big play at the end. But you got to get Alabama State credit. As bad as they played yesterday, Alabama State found a way to win it.
And that's different. Different.
And the biggest stat that matters for the Hornets, you're 1-0. That's a stat that matters. You 1-0. But I will say this. I think that seat for Donald Hill Ely has went to warm to blazing hot.
Ooh, even with the wind. That's tough. Hey, Drew, any thoughts on that?
Now, BJ, did Alabama State find a way to win it, or did Alabama State find a way to hold on in that particular game, because Alabama State first drive down the field looked just like the BX SWAC challenge with Alcorn going right down the field and scoring on their first drive. Then you had 3.5 quarters of nothing from either team offensively. I don't think either team put together more than 3 first downs in a row in that 3.5 quarter time period. So both defenses played outstanding. Once you got on the other side of the 50, it seemed like both defenses tightened up and would force you to punt. And there were about, I can't find it on my stats because I'm actually looking at them on my phone instead of my iPad today. There were about 3 or 4 fourth downs that both teams went for and did not convert on the plus side of the field. That makes your defense look good. Where maybe the outcome may have been even a little bit more different if you'd have punted the ball, pinned that team deeper, and then got the ball back. You know, that plus 20, plus 25 yards of real estate may have made a difference and helped out your offense in the game. So, getting back to your question, is Miles that good, or is Alabama State that bad? Still can't answer that question. But I did learn in that game what the difference between a Division II player and a Division I player is. There were breakaways that Miles had, running backs, receivers. If that's Division II team on Division II teams, that's probably a touchdown. But Division II on Division I, those players had that closeout speed and had that extra gear that allowed Alabama State's defense to catch the person and to give their defense another opportunity. And if that's Division I on Division I, you probably get a touchdown out that play. But that difference in the level of play, just however minute it was, looked like it may have been a difference when Miles had a big play. So do not sleep on Miles when they get back into their division of play, which will be Morehouse in week 3. What scares me about Miles, they have Southern next week. Will this team lose its confidence after potentially going 0-2 to start the season?
A lot of great points made there. I'm going to go to you, Alan. What are your thoughts in terms of this Miles-Alabama State matchup? What did you see? What do you want to bring to the table?
And all I can say is when you let Miles rush almost 200 yards on you and you Alabama State, I'm in agreement. That seat is hot, bruh. It's hot because that SWAC East is, I mean, we see Alabama A&M, and you know what a Kill Glass can do. That's kind of a given. We're going to see tonight with FAM and Jackson State, but, you know, you got to figure both of those teams are going to be very competitive, right? So now you got Alabama State, who's trying to. They got who they gonna beat in the East, man? Bethune-Cookman? Can they beat Bethune? I don't know. I don't think so. I think, bro, that seat is flaming hot. I agree on that.
While we talk about hot seat, DJ Jones, I'm gonna come back to you before we go to the next one because you're right. Between Texas Southern and Alabama State, which seat is the hottest? Which offense was the most anemic? I'll let you get into that, and then you can start talking about the Alabama A&M, South Carolina State, which was just the opposite, an offensive explosion. So answer the first part first, and then you can get into Alabama A&M, South Carolina State.
Hey, I'll say this. Miles only attempted 9 passes yesterday. 9 passes. Only completed 3 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're talking about in 2021, in this world of spread offenses, Miles only completed 3 passes for an entire ball game.
That's not even a full game.
Kentucky State, though.
But I think with Alabama State, man, Miles made the game ugly. They played keep away as much as they could. Miles only had 12 total first downs for the entire game. 12 total first downs for the entire game. Alabama State had 17. This game was ugly. It was almost like an old mud game with no mud and no rain. So I think, you know, with Alabama State, the biggest thing is you come out of that game 1-0, but looking ahead of that schedule, and if they play the way that they played on yesterday, there ain't too many more W's left on that schedule, and that is bad news for one Donald Hill-Ely. And I think if I had to compare whose seat is hotter, I think that Donald Hill-Ely and the coach from Texas Southern, I think they're twins. You know, one hadn't won a conference game since he's been there, and the one that looks like the program is up and down and in the middle and down and in the middle. And yeah, I think that both of them, you know, right now, probably on the conference call, you know, with each other, like, man, how are we gonna handle this? Because it's bad.
Yeah, hey, I gotta ask this question. How long has Texas Southern's athletic director been there?
He's going on his fourth year as well in terms of being the VP of athletics.
How long has Alabama State's athletic director been there?
About a month.
Okay, we all know what happens with new athletic directors. They want their own people. I'm done with it. I'm done.
Yeah, point made. Point made. Point made.
He just turned that temperature dial up a little bit more.
Woo! So I'm gonna stick with you, BJ Jones. But I like your point. I'm gonna tell Kentucky State offense, Miles College offense. I'm gonna say as Jay Harris would say, give it 5. Can I just get 5? Can I get 5 on it? Say Jay Walker, I should say, can I get 5 on it? It's 5. With that, BJ Jones, get into the opposite side of things. Alabama A&M, South Carolina State. Oh man, it was aerial assault. It takes us back to those Jay Walker, McNair, Steve McNair days when the ball was flying all over the place. What did you think about this matchup, Alabama A&M, South Carolina State? We know last spring, Alabama A&M put it on South Carolina State. You said Alabama A&M would get it done. It was a lot closer than what you thought, but you also said they're going to put up the offensive numbers. So you were right in a lot of ways in terms of this matchup. What did you see in this as the Alabama A&M Bulldogs get it done 42-41?
Alabama A&M's offense is exactly what we thought they were. Akil Glass was amazing on yesterday. And I think that he is unquestionably the best quarterback in the conference. If you look at what he did and how he put that football team on his back, give this man a Senior Bowl invite. You can't convince me right now that he's not a Sunday player. Love everything that he did. And the thing about it is he's efficient. You know, he's efficient. 28-49, 425 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Let me repeat that again. No interceptions. Gary Qualls, we talk about the lack of run game from Alabama A&M. Not last night. Gary Qualls, 22 carries, 129 yards. He added a touchdown. And Brian Jenkins, we talk about the other receivers. It's Brian Jenkins, the little guy getting it done, 5 receptions, 116 yards and a touchdown. And this is where I go the opposite end. We talk about the Alabama State defense. We talk about the players that they brought in and you know, the transfers, and they were shoring up their defense. They're just as bad as they were in the spring, maybe worse. They still can't tackle. They miss a lot of tackles. They're not physical. They're opportunistic. A turnover seems to find them, but defensively, I watched that football game and I watched what Bethune-Cookman did, and that Thursday night game that's coming up in about 2 weeks, that one can get really, really interesting. We talk about that clash of styles, but shout out to Alabama A&M, shout out to South Carolina State, because offensively, the Bulldogs look a lot better. They passed for 212 yards, was able to run for 242 yards. They averaged 6.5 yards per carry. At one point, they were averaging 7.5 yards per carry. Like I said, South Carolina State just couldn't get it done at the end, but that Alabama State defense, we talk about the improvements and everything that's being made. I think that this year, Alabama A&M is going to be like they always have been. They're going to have to outscore people.
Great points made. Alan, I'm going to go to you. This was a big win for the SWAC. quietly. You know, a lot of people had their feelings hurt in terms of SWAC after week 0. So we needed a little rebound, particularly against the MEAC. South Carolina, Alabama A&M saved face on that side. But in what direction do you want to go when you look at this matchup?
Man, I got to say that I-10 and I-20 corridor, we all had a big sigh of relief when we saw that final score, bro, because we didn't want to take another L to the MEAC. I'm just telling you. But, you know, I think I agree with BJ. That Alabama A&M offense, Akil Glass is the truth. We can just leave that where it is. I don't think we have to talk about that too much more. But, you know, you look at Alec Troutman, who was a defensive lineman. You got to get a big boy some credit. He got that pick in the first quarter and ran it back 50 yards. So you got to get a big fella some love, bro. So you rarely see a defensive lineman with a 50-yard pick 6. We take it, bro. We take it. Loving it. But Alabama A&M outgained South Carolina State 569 yards to 455. Key is that 455. Bruh, it's going to get real ugly for Alabama A&M if they don't do something on that defensive side of the ball. You know, you're going to wear Akil Glass out if you got to put up almost 50 points every week. It's just not going to work because by week 3, everybody going to have film. This is not Madden. There will be adjustments. So they need to do something and do it quick, bro, because otherwise we might have a new champ.
Gary Quarles, 22 carries, 129s and a touchdown. Brian Jenkins Jr. after that early fumble that you were like, oh my goodness, is A&M gonna start like this? He went right back down and scored. He had 5 receptions, 116 yards and a touchdown. But Allen says it'll be fascinating to see. 1 data point. We have 10, 11, 12 more to go. So it'll be fascinating. AD Drew, what are your thoughts on the South Carolina State Bulldogs, Alabama A&M Bulldog matchup? You transitioned for the MEAC to the SWAC. I know you had a little BB on your head as well. What are your thoughts?
SWAC still needs to be on alert for these MEAC teams. There's only one Akil Glass in the SWAC. Alabama A&M may be the only team who could get into a shootout with a SWAC team, a MEAC team, and beat them. The offenses are good in the SWAC, but remember, Alabama A&M was the #1 rated offense in the SWAC, and they were only 1 point better than the MEAC team, who, South Carolina State traditionally is the #1 defensive team in the MEAC. So SWAC still needs to be on alert and realize they still gonna have to bring the fire come the Celebration Bowl in order for that title to come back to the SWAC. I mean, it hasn't been there since Grambling in 2016, if I got my years correct, 2017. Mm-hmm. 2016.
Point well taken when you start talking about those defenses there. I mean, about the offense in terms of area. It'd be interesting to see, can some of these SWAC defenses make a statement? Bethune-Cookman now in there, FAMU. We can slide on over there to Southern. Is Prairie View going to be different in terms of defense? We'll see. Pine Bluff quietly getting it done, and we want to kind of shake our heads at them, but I think they got a statement to make too. BJ Jones always reminds everybody. And Alcorn, as everybody slowly wants to think about them fading away, they'll be back in the picture. But with that said, let's take our last break, get into it before we transition. I'm going to come back. We'll have a free flow. We'll let each of our guests talk about a particular game that they want to talk about before we get into the last part of it, where we break down the 3 games today. With this is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson, Charles Bishop. We have in the studio with us today, though, none other than BJ Jones, the football analyst, as he breaks down HBCUs like none others. We have the production guru bringing it to us with AD Drew, and we have none other than the 1876 Sports and Culture podcast guru as well with Alan Williams. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this last break.
It's the show where we take you inside the game before the game begins. It's the pregame. your host, Charles Bishop and Neely. So get ready because we pregame harder than the other show's party. It's the pregame.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
Industry was hurting, but I done bandaged the rope. Now I got too sick with it. Now we done found us.
Here comes Monmouth. Now they come in at North Carolina A&T for homecoming.
Advice to Monmouth for homecoming at A&T. Leave the band at home. You can just get the whole 20 minutes to A&T.
With my powers and knocking the pitches down, trying to teach you business first and put your pitches down. Major.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
This is Dr. Bill inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. I'm in the studio with BJ Jones, AD Drew, and Alan Williams, 1876 Sports and Culture, getting it in. I'm going to stick with you, BJ Jones. What is a wild card game that you wanted to speak of in terms of those list of games we had? Which one do you want to focus on and give some more insight on?
Oh, it was Bowie State and I guess Delaware State. You know, I talked about Delaware State all summer and that this was going to be a statement game for Delaware State, and it was. They got the job done. They held on 32-24. That game, they actually had a few scores lead. Bowie State actually closed the gap on them. But shout out to Delaware State for getting that win, defeating Bowie State, who has been red hot in the CIAA for the last 3 to 4 years. But if you're Bowie State, life without Henry Frazier III. What is it? Let me tell you, we say that you live by the numbers. I'm going to give you guys just some numbers. One team had 354 yards of total offense. One team only had 191 yards of total offense. One team only passed for 76 yards. The other team passed for a lot of yards. One team only averaged 2.7 yards per carry. Check this out. The team that had 354 yards is the team that lost. Why? Because they had 13 penalties for 130 yards, and they turned the ball over 6 times. This game for Bowie State, they should have won this ball game. 6 turnovers, 130 yards worth of penalties. They did not play disciplined Bowie State football, which we're accustomed to seeing. Now we got to talk about life without Henry Frazier. Henry Frazier comes into their program as an offensive coordinator, as assistant head coach. Bowie State goes from bridesmaid to the bride. 2 straight trips to Division II playoffs. You get 2 championships in 2 of the 3 years that he's there. You look at the trajectory of Bowie State and Damon Wilson in that program pre-Henry Frazier. Look at it with Henry Frazier. And if you're a Bulldog fan, you have to wonder, are we going back to the pre-Henry Frazier days? Because those days were full of a whole bunch of 5-5 and 6-4 teams that didn't get a CIAA title, that didn't get into Division II championship. Just something to think about and look at when we talk about Bowie State moving forward.
I like that. Before I switch it over, who are you giving your helmet sticker to today? Who gets a helmet sticker for you?
Oh, man, for the week, man, it's Akil Glass. No doubt, Akil Glass, man, he gets a helmet. If I had 2 helmet stickers, I'd give him 2 of them. He was the man. So Akil Glass, Alabama A&M, man, shout out to him.
That's the Big Ben helmet sticker, Big Ben Cavil Sr., as we talk about HBCU football legend right there, 1925 to 1925, twice All-American. I'm going to go to Allen and let him tell me about the game he wants to speak of, and then he can give me his helmet sticker. I think I know where it may be going.
All right, man. I want to talk. I'm not quite ready to ask Southern University to step to the front of the congregation yet, but the 55-3 whooping that they took against Troy is significant. Okay. Now there's a lot of talk around the SWAC about making that step up from FCS to FBS. Well, this might be what you have to look forward to for the first couple of years when you make that jump. Those additional scholarships make a difference, make a huge difference. Now, I was hoping that Southern could just keep this game respectable, but I mean, when you look at time of possession, it wasn't that big of a difference. You had 32 minutes and 31 seconds for Troy versus 27 minutes, 29 seconds for Southern. You hear that and you're like, okay, this should be a little bit closer. But then you dig into the numbers. Troy was 3 for 3 on 4th down. That's not supposed to happen, bro. 3 for 3. They only punted the ball once. They had one punt the whole game. You talk about number of first downs. The tail of the first downs is just, it was 27-11. I mean, bro, this was like, I don't know. This wasn't varsity versus JV, bro. This felt like Pop Warner versus varsity. So I'm a little worried about this junk talk, all this talk about FBS, bro. I might be happy just staying where we are for right now, bro, because that was ugly. That was just ugly.
It's a great point when you talk about FBS and those scholarships matter. First couple of years making the move. I'm still supporting the move because financially, I think it does something different when you recruit as an FBS program versus recruiting as an FCS program to play FBS program. So it'll be interesting, but it is something to keep your eyes on, as there has been a roadmap that it looks like the Southwestern Athletic Conference is looking to in terms of eventually making a move to the FBS level. So I'm glad that you brought that up because that is something to consider. AD Drew is well, before I do that, Alan, who does your Big Ben L. Cavil Sr. helmet sticker go to?
None other than Jawan Pass, 354 yards and 3 touchdowns. I got to give it to the young man. Young man rumble.
Nice. AD Drew, any matchup that you wanted to speak of before I let you give me your Big Ben L. Cavil helmet sticker of the week?
Not one particular matchup, but Alan almost took my point. Over this weekend, thus far, when our HBCUs have gone outside of the world of HBCUs to play football, we were 1-18 on the including 0 for 7 on the FCS level. 0 for 7, and I'm not counting Langston's victory on the NAIA level because that is a conference game. So I'm not counting that. In non-conference games, 1-18. 1-18. Why are we only 1-18? Athletic departments, alumni, we need to fund our athletic programs at the maximum level. Those 3, 4, 5 scholarships that we save, you get 62 on the FCS level. 63. We funded 55, 56, 57. Those 4 or 5 scholarships make the difference. You get 36 on the Division II level. We funded 30. We funded 25. That makes the difference. Once we can get those level of athletes, and that's why these teams are consistently beating us, 1-18. So with that being said, Dr. Cavil, I want to give my helmet sticker to an entire team. That being the Albany State Golden Rams, who got that one non-HBCU out-of-conference victory over this weekend.
Man, I love it. Great comments by all, man.
Don't forget about Morehouse.
Yeah, that was two. We did call it, and that was a big one by Morehouse too, and one that I can see why you didn't consider, because we don't think about Morehouse getting those non-conference wins. They have had a trajectory where they would come up and playing well in the conference, but they had dipped down a little bit, but now they back into it.
Morehouse won, ESPN has to score backwards then, because ESPN has to score 48 for West Alabama, 7 for Morehouse. That's why I did not include them, because I went off of the ESPN app when I looked up those scores.
Well, we'll verify it, because we need to get that in there, but that's a great point.
If that, still 2 out of 18, not good math.
No doubt about it. Well, let's get into the matchups today. This is where we have the cigar and champagne contest today. We got our classic galore. Let's start with the first one that's on tilt, which is Grambling and Tennessee State in Canton, Ohio, Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium, Black College Hall of Fame Classic. It's going down. 2 blue blood programs. I should call them black blood programs, since they HBCU programs, as we talk about it in that vernacular. Africana studies. Let me throw that in there and spin the game with just a little bit. We call it red, black, and green. How about that? We really throw people off on that one. So we got Tennessee State out of the OVC, Grambling out of SWAC. Another opportunity for the SWAC to get that non-conference win. Eddie George is debuting in this matchup. Fascinating. Grambling's trying to get off the ground. So many different storylines in this matchup. The fact of what Doug Williams is getting done in a lot of ways, of getting all this support to even put these games together, the Battle of the Band, all the championships between these things. It'll be fascinating in so many different ways as we go forward. It looks like Morehouse did lose in terms of that game as we get that up there. So we'll get that checked out. Man, I was listening to my Onadon.com, so understand how that mixed up there. But that goes back to your one number, whether it was 1 or 2, but it's 1. That just makes it a little more nervous for us. But we try to give Morehouse a little love there. But with that being said, let me go to you, AD. Jump in there. Talk about this Grambling-Tennessee State matchup. What are your thoughts?
This is a battle of the 2 teams that have won the most HBCU Black national championships. Tennessee State 16, Grambling 15. I've been on so many shows. I know I've said this. I don't remember where I said this before, but you will not add to that total in 2021. Neither one of these teams will add to that total. Tennessee State hired their coach in May. So the teams that have hired their coaches in May, even if they have come out victorious over the weekend, have not looked good. So with that being said, I think advantage Grambling in this game, considering Broderick Fobbs should have a chip on his shoulder. The Grambling Tigers and the G-Men better have a chip on their shoulders after the egg they laid this spring. So no disrespect to Eddie George, just hasn't had time to lay his mark on that program, advantage Grambling.
No doubt. With that said, man, I love the lab listeners. They getting it in, boy. Those comments, Prairie View, Texas Southern, giving false hope. Texas Southern fans said, oh, Diane Weber getting it hard. William E. Davis, South Carolina State, got 2 more SWAC schools on the schedule, FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. Great point. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Stephen Gaither in the house, giving us some information. Demetri Glenn, Corey Williams, William E. Davis, Herman Jones, Ricky Burden in here. You know, he's going to be interesting to see what B.J. Jones says about his Grambling State Tigers as they take on Tennessee State Tigers. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Hey, the biggest thing for Grambling, man, is you have to bounce back. You know, I said this before about Grambling. We know what happened in the spring, and we know how that season went for them. Grambling fans are willing to forget about the spring. They're not forgetting about the fall. They are not. I mean, if you would, ask me, I like Grambling to win this month. Fobbs came in, he did some retooling to that staff, brought in a new offense coordinator, a new offensive line coach, did some retooling over there. Now we see has Grambling improved, because I think that Tennessee State, even with a new coach, that running back who was OVC newcomer of the year during the spring, Tennessee State has some pieces. They have some pieces, and you look how they played Jacksonville State, Eastern Kentucky, Murray State, and some of the likes. They were in almost all of those games. So it's going to be a challenge for Grambling. I like Grambling to pull this one off because if they don't, we talk about hot seats. We talk about Donald Ely. We talk about the coach at Texas Southern.
Clarence
Grambling
McKinney.
lose this one. Clarence McKinney. If Grambling loses this one, I think Broderick Fox might be scared to pick up his phone for a couple of days.
Noted. Drop the mic. Alan, what do you say about this Grambling Tennessee State matchup? No, your brothers went to Tennessee State, so are you going to show them some love or are you going to stay with the swag?
I think I got to go with Tennessee State on this one, bro. I think 2021, Grambling will be 0-5.
Woo, short and sweet. With that, let's go to the nightcap, which is Fort Valley State in Tuskegee in the Red Tails Classic, Montgomery, Alabama, Crampton Bowl. Y'all in the house. AD, Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of this matchup?
Red Tails Classic should be good. You've got a new coach at Fort Valley, Maurice Flowers. They did play 2 games in the spring, so we do have a little bit of data as far as seeing what they'll be doing under the new coach. But in the interview that I recorded with Coach Flowers earlier this week, he did say those 2 games, although they were good to play, those 2 teams were not the quality and caliber of a Tuskegee Golden Tigers team. So Tuskegee is young, except in one key area. The offensive line is veteran. So if they can protect their young quarterback, and I guarantee you're going to see Coach Slater go back to some basic Tuskegee play. They're going to run that belly all day, which is the dive up the middle, as they like to call it. So you're going to see Tuskegee go more to the belly and more to the running game, stay in between the tackles early to set up the stuff to the outside that Tuskegee has ran over the last few years. He know he doesn't have Kevin Huff back there playing quarterback. He know he doesn't have Jakari Atkinson back there playing quarterback. He doesn't have Kevin Lacey playing quarterback. I've seen Coach Slater have 2 totally different offenses depending on his quarterback is. Tuskegee fans, you're going to see offense number 2 at least early on in this season, along with Coach Kevin Powell, the new defensive coordinator at Tuskegee. Powell said he's going to bring the fire, bring the house. I think Tuskegee gets this done, but this may be a preview of the SIAC championship game.
Good point. BJ Jones, your thoughts?
Tell you what, I want to get head coach first on the phone and AD as well. Yes. Look, if Tuskegee loses this ball game, head coach Willis Slater and athletic director Willis Slater are going to have a conversation with each other. All right? Because if you look at what Tuskegee has been for the last couple of years, 5-5 is not Tuskegee football. That's not Golden Tigers football. That's not going to get it done. Okay. At some point, athletic director Willis Slater and head coach Willis Slater, they're going to have a conversation with each other, a genuine conversation with each other. And I know that Willis Slater might be a little bit biased towards a football coach, but 5-5 won't get it done at Tuskegee. And if you lose this one with the way that the SIAC has improved, I can make an argument that the SIAC, there was a point where Tuskegee was ahead of the SIAC, and it wasn't too long ago. We talk about maybe 6-7 years ago. Now the SIAC has gone past, and they have moved forward past Tuskegee. For you to stop that, you got to get this win against Fort Valley. So I think I'm gonna predict Willis Slater, the head coach, should get it done, and then Willis Slater, the athletic director, to congratulate him. And that's my prediction. But if it doesn't happen, we got this whole hot seat thing going. Willis Slater, the head coach, and Willis Slater, the AD, might be on there together.
Oh, wow.
And I come back on that.
Hold on. Let me let Alan jump in here. I like that. We'll bring you in here. Go ahead, Alan. What's your thought?
I think BJ is really colorful with his description there on that conversation. You know, when we went to remote learning, Yada, you know, you had Deuce at home, and so you became teacher and parent. So I'm sure those parent-teacher conferences got a little interesting during that time. So we gonna see how that conversation goes with Willie Slater, the AD, and Willie Slater, the head coach. But you know, the Wildcats, you know, they got a brand new resurfaced field. They're playing at home. You know, the last time they played, they lost to Tuskegee. What was it, 17-6 back in 2018? So I don't know, man. I think Willie Slater might be having a different conversation. That's my prediction. Fort Valley takes this one.
Ooh, nice. I'm gonna go back to you, AD Drew. Let you get your point in, and then as you do that, go ahead and get into that FAMU Jackson State matchup.
Willie Slater, the athletic director, sent a text message to Willie Slater, the coach. Your job is safe, coach. Your AD. Willie Slater will bring somebody in to run the athletic department and go back to coaching if that's what it takes. But Willie Slater, the coach, the new president at Tuskegee, is happy with Willie Slater, the coach. Make no mistakes about it. Willie Slater is Tuskegee. He is the epitome of Tuskegee and what Tuskegee values are. They will bring in whatever help they need to in the athletic department if that's what it takes for Willie Slater.
Well, they need to bring somebody in. I'll say that
program back to what it is. Keep in mind, everybody, the president was just named the president back in April. So give her an opportunity to get everything done. And them foregoing the playoffs and going back to the classic model of scheduling is a precursor to what they are trying to do. Because all those contracts are signed in her office.
Ooh, great point. Now jump into the Jackson State. Oh, go ahead, BJ.
Hey, it's hard to forego the playoffs when you ain't making it in the first place. That's called not making it. They ain't calling. That's not called foregoing the playoffs. That's called not making it in the first place.
Alumni, wait a minute.
All right, before we get into
play, and you get an interview with that later.
AD, I need you to get into the SWAC Jackson State FAMU game, SWAC matchup.
Look, if there's one game that, as a FAMU alum, that I'm afraid of outside of the Florida Classic, is this game. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of this game because we don't know what we're facing. You know, in the past, even as the players change, coaches' schemes and coaches' tendencies tend to stay the same. We talk about those data points. There just aren't enough data points with Coach Prime at Jackson State, considering he had to basically play with what he had and adapt to what he wanted to do to what he had this spring. Excuse me. I say last year, but this spring. Now, he's had a half a recruiting cycle. We'll just say a half a recruiting cycle to bring in some fresh players. Will these players gel that fast? I don't personally think so, but it would not surprise me if they did gel that fast and gave FAMU a run for its money. But everybody forgets FAMU had the #1 class pre-pandemic in HBCU football. Them boys have been on campus for almost 2 years getting Coach Simmons' system down. So advantage should be to FAMU, but this game scares the crap out of me for FAMU. This first and last game on the schedule are the two that scare me for FAMU.
Interesting. Bookended. BJ Jones, you talked about that class about FAMU a couple of years ago, as other folks seem to forget, as Coach Prime has got on the scene in the class he did, rightfully so, have focused on him. But give me your take on this matchup, Jackson State FAMU.
I think a lot of it is unknown versus unknown. FAMU hasn't played in 2 years. The last time we saw them, that they were very impressive. You could argue that FAMU had the best resume as far as the FCS teams in Black college football in 2019. But we don't know. They haven't played in 2 years. We don't know how that rust factor goes. I think that FAMU's ceiling is the quarterback position. Quarterback plays well, so goes FAMU. They're talented in every other position, from running back with Bishop Bunnett to the receivers with Chad Hunter, Xavier Smith, Markeith Bell is one of the best players in the country, not just HBCU football, best players in the country. That roster is stacked. The unknown is the quarterback position. With Jackson State, there's a whole bunch of unknowns. They basically cleared out the entire roster from the spring, brought in all new guys that really just have gotten together. If I had to lean one way, it would be Florida A&M. But to me, it's the unknown versus the unknown.
Alan, what are your thoughts?
Well, if I can quote,
this is for the champagne and the cigar. I need to know. This is classic. People get trophies for this.
All right.
Bonus money is on the line. What you got?
Hey, if I can quote the great Mike Tyson, everybody got a plan till they get hit in the mouth. FAMU has not seen the field since 2018. 2019. Bruh, that's a long time. You can only do so much in an orange and green scrimmage, beating up on each other. So I think the speed of the game, being in that atmosphere, the adrenaline rush, with all the hype around this game, the culture wins no matter what. The culture is going to win. As far as this game goes, it's a toss-up, bro. I can't call it. I want to say logic tells me FAMU, but when it comes to this type of game in this environment, logic doesn't always play out, bro. So
hey, I need a game. Pick it out. Who you got, man?
All right, man. I'll tell you what. I'm gonna jump out there.
I'm gonna jump out there. Why should tell me who you got? Just stick out there.
I'm gonna jump out there, and I'm just gonna go. I'm going with the Tigers, man. I'm going with Coach Prime on this one.
BJ Jones, who you got in this matchup?
Oh, Florida A&M.
AD Drew, who you got?
Strike. And
Red Tails Classic, Tuskegee, Fort Valley, who you got, AD Drew?
Do you really have to ask me that, Doc?
Tuskegee, all right. BJ Jones.
Hey, Tuskegee, yeah. Woo, woo, woo.
Alan, who you got?
I'm going with the home team. I'm going with the Wildcats.
Sticking with you, Alan. Grambling State, Tennessee State, who you got?
Tennessee State.
BJ Jones, run it back.
I can't do it, Grambling.
AD2.
Can I just say the Tigers?
Yeah. No, man. That'll work. Nice try.
G-Man. I got the G-Man.
Man, I appreciate it. Great show today. I hope the lab listeners got it. We'll be surprised if we find a way and sneak on here tomorrow morning. It is Labor Day. We had 3 games. We might break them down and discuss some more. So tune in and check us out. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab, College HBCU Sports, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Man, we had our guest on here, Raymond Holler, G. Boone, giving us some breakdown in terms of that game on the sideline. We'll get a chance maybe to sneak him back in to talk about what was his favorite pitcher he got, and we'll get it. Yeah, you just heard it. I get to celebrate one way or the other when the Tigers of Texas Southern University plays Prairie View A&M University.
The breakfast of champions.
I always win because I always like to have a good time. So we're tuning off, and I'm going to begin to celebrate. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1. That's on Twitter, Facebook, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, as well as on YouTube. Like, subscribe. Make sure you follow all our stuff on BCSN. That's my BCSN, my JBN. Check out BJ Jones' show. You know, he brings it hard and heavy on Wednesday. You got Brian and AD Sports Rap as they do it every week as well. You know, we're on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. We'll give you a special edition of Monday. We have the Knights of the Round Table on Monday. Man, if you can't get your full all week long, and then we debut this Saturday also the Game Time show where we get it hot and heavy. You'll hear all the voices of HBCU sports coming right here on BCSN. Let's get it done. We look forward to you tomorrow, certainly next week, with the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, again on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's DrKenyattaCavil. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. DJ.
Lecture.
Drew.
Unless I miss chorus, I'm going to get the chorus in.
There you go.
I knew it was one of them.
Dismissed.
That'll do it.